everyone, Carol from Segovia Quilts here. Today we are going to be changing the motherboard on my Q'Nique 14 Plus. So let me show you the parts we're going to be changing today. A couple of days ago I was starting on a new project and I was running my basting stitch here on my backing fabric so that I could go ahead and get a straight line to lay my top and my batting on. And I was about halfway through and my machine kind of blinked off and then came back on. So at first I thought I just hit the power cable, checked all the connections, no big deal, came over and tried to continue my line, and the machine just was not acting properly at all. It kept freezing. This screen up here kept freezing. The needle wouldn't go up and down when I was hitting my buttons. So I was like, okay, what's going on? So I unplugged it. I moved my screen to the back handlebars, thinking maybe my buttons up here had fried. So I moved it, went back there, turned it back on, and tried to continue my stitch from behind. And when I turned it on and I hit the button to start my stitching, I heard a noise inside the machine. It was like when I hit the button, I could hear it trying to activate and do the thing it was supposed to be doing. But still nothing happened here. My needle wouldn't move, nothing. And it was a few seconds afterwards that I got this kind of smell from my machine. And I was standing on this side and the smell was coming from right in this area. I didn't see anything, nothing out of the ordinary, but it smelled strange. And then my husband came up and he said, "What's that smell? It smells like something electrical is burning." And that was when it kind of confirmed. I was like, oh, okay, I'm pretty sure my motherboard just fried. So yeah, so the motherboard in my machine went bad and it's located right around here. And so that's why I was smelling the smell from right around here, because something in it melted or started to burn. So I called Grace. They told me the parts that I needed and I'll show you those. So this is the main motherboard. This is what fried in my machine. But my machine, it's again a 14 Plus. I got it in the beginning of 2017. Since then, they have made some updates to other components of the machine. So in addition to my main motherboard, they said that I also needed an encoder motherboard because they made some changes to it. So I had to buy both motherboards and I have to replace both of them. They did send me the instruction manual on how to do it, so I have that. But I'm going to go ahead and show you all how to actually do it because I didn't see any videos out there showing how to do it. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Okay, so we're going to start first with the encoder motherboard. Now if you're standing behind the machine, it's going to be on the right side, so your encoders plug in right here. The motherboard is inside here, so to get this off, there's just 4 screws, this one, this one, this one, and this one. So let's go ahead and get those off. Okay, so all the screws are off and we're opening it up now. So you can see there is a bundle of wires there. Now those are actually connected to the motherboard. So when you open it up, definitely be careful. You don't want to just rip it off because you might mess up the wire bundle there. So now once you open it up, there are 4 screws, one there, 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 and there. You need to remove all 4 so you can actually separate the motherboard from the plastic housing. So let's do that. All right, so all the screws are out. So now you just want to separate the motherboard from the leg of the machine, and this is what it'll look like. So there's a lot of wires, so don't just start pulling wires out. They all go in a specific spot. So here is our replacement board, and it's going to sit in there the same way that that one came out. So all of these little connection ports here will be sticking out so that you can plug everything back in. So probably what the easiest option is to, as you unplug a wire from here, you just plug it right back into the new one so everything goes right back to where it's supposed to go. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and there are several connections. So there's one here, 2 here, 1 here, 1 more here, a big one, and then there's 2 little ones right here. So make sure you get all of your connections unplugged and plugged back in over here, one at a time so nothing gets mixed up. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so this is the old motherboard. This is the new one. All the wires are plugged back in into their appointed spots. Really the only difference between the old one and the new one is this is the old one. It's got like a little box around it. The new one does not have that. And then there's also some kind of relay connection here that the new one also does not have. Otherwise, everything else looks exactly the same. So now we're going to go ahead and put this board back into the leg housing. And this is where you'll definitely want to be careful that you don't get any wires pinched or anything like that. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so all the wires are safely tucked in, and we're just tightening down the Phillips head screws. Alright, so everything's tight. Now we're going to reattach the leg to the side of the sewing machine. And again, this is where you have the 4 bolts. The outside bolts are 3mm Allen wrenches, and the screws on the inside were Phillips head screws. So now we're just going to reattach our Allen wrench bolts to the side. Alright, so all of the bolts are now tight. So the last thing to do is plug the encoders back in. So all I have are 2 of these slots filled. I don't have anything else in any of the other slots. So my short wire goes on the top, and my long wire goes on the bottom. There we go. Alright, so this side is done. Now to move on to the main motherboard. Alright, so for the main motherboard, there are 8 different 4mm Allen head bolts that you will have to remove. So there are 2 over here. There is 1 right here, 1 in the back over here, 1 up top, 1 right here, 1 right here, and then the last one is right there. So now these have not been removed since I purchased the machine. So they most likely have Loctite on them. So if you have somebody who has a little bit of strength, maybe a husband, son, boyfriend, maybe have them assist you because these are on there very, very tight. So we're going to go ahead and remove all of these bolts. Okay, so all the bolts have been removed, so now you're going to take off this whole side of the machine, which will also include this cover because it's still attached to this side. Okay, so as you're taking off this side, the wheel covers here are attached to the side that we're taking off, so you'll want to make sure to just kind of slide both of them out at the same time, and then it'll open up for you here. Okay, so we have it opened up. Now be careful when you're taking off the side because those wires are going into this leg here and they are attached to the motherboard that we are changing. So don't just try and rip it all the way off. Be mindful of those wires. So we're just going to kind of leave this side here kind of leaning a little bit. We are supporting it so it's not going to fall. So now here's the motherboard that we're going to be changing. Okay, so to remove the motherboard, there are 2 screws that you need to take off, and I don't know if you can see them. They're on the bottom. One is going to be on the left, and then one's going to be on the right. I know it's hard to see here. So this is the motherboard that we're going to be replacing. This is a new one. So here's what it looks like so you can get an idea. So there's a screw right here, and then on this side. So in the machine, I'm going to see if I can point out the screws. So this black screw right here, I know it's hard to see. There's a screw right there that needs to be loosened, and then there's a screw right here, right behind that yellow wire that needs to come out. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so we've taken out the pulley base thread pin, and now we were removing that little Allen head Okay, so there it is. So now the motherboard is free, but be careful removing it because there are, see those little wires in there? They hang out and make it difficult to get this in and out. So it's a little bit away, but we've got these wires attached here. So there are, looks like 3 sets of wires attached. So you've got this one, and this one here. So I'm going to remove this one here first. So we'll remove this since it's holding it in place and making it difficult. Okay, so now I'm going to pick it up and bring it over. So this lip was sticking down and that goes there, but these wires here, you can't just pull it straight out. You have to pick it up and kind of pull it out. All right, so we've got these out. So let's get our new motherboard. So here's the old one and the new one. So they definitely moved things around. Things are not in the same place. This little rainbow one is going to go here, but it's these other 2 wires here that we need to make sure we put in the right place here, because if you get them in the wrong spots, it will fry your new motherboard. So to switch these, so now you can see that this old motherboard here looks completely different from the new motherboard here. But in the instructions, it does say take the thicker cable. So if you look at these 2 sets of cables, these cables here are a little thicker than these cables here. So it says the thicker cable goes to the back one on the new motherboard, and my husband and I were looking at it. This plug here, you might not be able to see it, but right in there it's labeled J3, and on the new motherboard it's also labeled J3. Let me see if I can zoom in. So it's not focusing, but right on the outside it does say J3. And then in the diagram, it does show that these 2 green ones here aren't in use. So we're going to plug the thicker cable, which is kind of in the middle of the old board, into this back one. And then this smaller cable on the front is going to go into this front one. So we're going to go ahead and do that. All right, so we've got those 2 plugged in. The plugs themselves are directional. You can only put them in one way because the plug has kind of like a U shape. So it's U'd, and then on the opening of the U is just flat. So you do need to make sure that you get it in the right way, otherwise it won't go in. So now we're going to go ahead and plug this rainbow cable into that open slot right there. Alright, so we've got all 3 cables plugged in. We've got our Phillips head screw and our Allen head screw tightened down. And now we are ready to put the side of the machine back onto the machine. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so this was definitely harder to put back in than it was to take out. So I do have the rear handles on right here, which posed an issue because to get this to slide on, the rear handle here was in the way. We were able to angle the top in and then slide on the bottom here. So we did that. But then up here, the front handle hits just the very corner of this. So we had to angle that. But then we were hitting the take-up lever. So then we had to line that up and then angle it in there. And then, so we got this in. Before we did that, we did have to loosen the handles though. And let me come around to the front. So the screen here, there's a little lever here that sticks out through here that if you push it in, it'll pop up and give you access to the inside. There are 4 Allen head bolts in here that we loosened to give us a little play in the handles here so that we could clear this corner. So we had to loosen the handles, and then once we got all that in, then there are slots. Let me see if I can show you underneath here. Watch out, Daisy. So you might not be able to see, but right up in there, there's a plastic T that slides into the groove for the wheels that we had to finagle to get in there. And then finally everything closed up, so you can see the line here is closed, and then the line on the top here is closed. So we're tightening down the handlebar Allen head bolts, and then we'll have to snap this back into place, which when you're doing this, be careful not to pinch your wires in here. So we'll do that, and then we're going to go ahead and put all of our bolts back in throughout the machine. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Alright, so all the bolts are now tightened down. I've rethreaded it. I ran my thread up. We tightened this down. Everything's rethreaded. I've lined my machine up to the line that I originally started on when this happened. I've plugged it back in, so we're going to go ahead and turn it on. And we got a light. We heard a beep. Let's go around to the front. Okay, so we do have power, so that's good. All right, so now the test to see if it's working properly. I mean, it's definitely a step in the right direction because at least the needle's moving now.
Yeah.
It wasn't before. Okay, so I had to get a sample piece of a quilt here to test out the machine after getting all the boards changed. So I guess when it initially started having issues, it caused a rat's nest of thread down by my bobbin area. So I had to tend to that. That's why my thread kept breaking. So I've got it, since I'm filming with one hand, I've put it in manual mode, and hopefully you can see that there. So, well, it's in manual mode. This way I could test out just to make sure everything's going. So I've done a little bit of a tester here already, but I figured, you know, obviously you guys want to make sure that if you have to change your motherboard that everything works afterwards. So I'm going to try and do this one-handed. So let's see. Alright, so hopefully you can see those stitches. I tried to get a contrasting color of thread here, but the stitches look great, so I think everything seems to be working proper and how it should be now. Yay! So I got my machine up and running. It no longer smells like burning or melted metal or electrical wires or anything like that. So now I'm going to get this tester out of here and we will be good to go. So that's it for today's video. Hopefully you got something out of this step-by-step process on how to change the motherboard in your Q'Nique machine. Obviously we hope it never happens to us, but sometimes it does. I didn't see any videos out there on how to do this, so I thought it'd be a great learning tool to put out there, so hopefully you found it helpful. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them in the comments section down below. If you're not a subscriber to my YouTube channel yet, please make sure you do so by hitting the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.